What would it be like to walk on clouds? This was a spark that began my venture into world building. In this fantasy world, land is sparse and cities are built on mountain peaks. The world is designed around clouds that are just barely thick enough to make walking on top of them possible. This is a process of pure creativity and design, and I'm going to be sharing all of my messy challenges of creating a world from scratch, brainstorming, sketching, illustrating, and storytelling. It's not very well defined yet, and I'll be changing it a lot, but I want to be sharing the process here of creating this world. I am a professional illustrator, and I want to use this as a creative outlet, since often I don't get a chance to design things from scratch. I've been thinking a lot about these cities, and they'll certainly change a lot from this initial design phase. In this world, clouds rise and solidify at a certain level. Below that level, they're too weak to support weight, and they don't rise above a certain height once they become too heavy. Imagine a mix of running on sand or deep snow, or if you've ever jumped into a foam pit, it'd be a little bit like that. Once you take a step in, you'd slowly start sinking down, so you'd have to keep on top of it by moving constantly. People who were able to walk on these clouds would be very strong. Clouds will melt with heat, and you'll sink into them faster if you keep standing still. Floating temporary cities of lightweight wood would be used by merchants and travelers, flitting from one city-state to the next. I'm imagining they'd have to have quite big clouds to be able to support all the weight on this, and I haven't decided how big they could be yet. They'd have a lot of rigging and ropes connected everywhere. When designing the cloud runners, I started by brainstorming what would they need to survive in an environment where they might constantly fall to their death. Everything they have would have to be lightweight. Their main tool that I designed would be like a ladder spear that you could use to climb across gaps in clouds to fight or hunt with, or to catch a cloud if they fell. They'd be using a lot of things like rope and grapples, nets, and this is of course still a brainstorming phase, so I'm just going through an initial design pass of what they could have, how they would carry things. Created this satchel that would kind of rotate around so they could grab anything on their back that they would need in the moment. The clothes would be quite lightweight. The shoes that they have are pretty much snowshoes. They're designed to stay on the top of clouds. I thought of the idea of a headscarf that could double as a hammock, potentially strung out by nets between a couple of clouds. The grapple would be lightweight but thick on the edges, so that it would be able to catch clouds and you'd pull yourself up with it. I'm trying to design the cities to be functional instead of just beautiful. Spires at the top are defensible because the clouds don't reach to this height, keeping away any attacks from above. This is where the nobility would live, and anybody rich or powerful enough to be able to stay in that secure area. Anything below would obviously be open to attacks from clouds at any angle. The only way in or out of the upper city would be through the guardhouse. Cities would use large metal bowls heated by fires to melt clouds for water. They'd wrangle in clouds through grapples and maybe even grapple guns like ballista to bring them in where they would heat them. They would use a water wheel to connect to a lift to be able to bring people up to the top levels. The cities would have extensive docks and rigging, like giant ship rigging, going all around the city on the edges to be able to catch new clouds or to bring in new merchant floating cities or ships. With all the water pouring down from areas above, water would be plentiful from the clouds always floating by, and all this moisture would fall down to the lower parts of the city where the poorer people lived. Inside the mountains would be full of caves and an underground city basically of its own. I'm imagining mushrooms growing there and it being quite dark and dank and full of all kinds of things that would grow there. I also imagine a lot of the wood would come from giant mushrooms that would have a thick stem that they'd be able to use for construction. I'm just starting out this channel, so I would really appreciate any shares or subscribes or likes if you enjoyed the content and would like to see more. I would love to do more of this in the future. Thank you.